6/27 seems like an extremely ambitious timeline for Albania joining the EU. Do you think that's feasible? You have opened 2 clusters now, that is 7 chapters. You've moved now obviously faster than Serbia has. They've been stuck since 2021 with not opening anything new. Do you think that's feasible?
Well, what I know is that when we started this process, my hairs were all black and my beard was much more trimmed. But being a big fan of Netflix, I'd say that after what I saw in these 2 days under this roof, which was amazing, Netflix could do 2 series, one about EU, one about US. The one about EU would be a patient with 27 doctors, and they were 28, by the way, but one got crazy and left the hospital. And US would be a one sheriff show. So I think what is happening is really a great, great thing, at least as I see it from that part of Europe that is not EU. So we are E without U, and we see things a bit differently. It's a great, great thing that happened. Europe needed to be shaken in a way that its sleep would go lost for some time. And now let's see what will come out of that. And going back to your question, I think that European Union has to make its mind about what's going on, because it has changed in terms of attitude towards us, and it has changed in terms of speed towards rapprochement with the Western Balkans. But what is happening is showing that it has changed too slow and too little. And we can talk about merit-based all day long, but I think it's time to make a very fast and clear-cut separation. Merit-based should be for only one thing: the right to vote in the European Council. It can't be about merit-based. Can't be about bringing all the non-EU countries in the single market. Merit-based can't be about bringing all non-EU countries in the whole operation.
Are you saying there shouldn't be? What are you saying exactly? That there shouldn't be a criteria on sort of legislative alignment, etc., for the EU single market, or?
I think this can be completely now speeded up, and can be much more about how to bring that part of Europe, which is not the European Union, much closer to a different way the continent thinks about itself. Because when we think about the continent as a whole, without Russia, we are 700 million. So it's a huge market. And the European Union has to do something about it, in the sense that what is out of the European Union cannot be up for grab for everyone else but for the European Union. This is what I mean. And the Western Balkans should be seen like the tech park of Europe, in the sense of it's where a lot of things can happen, like a lot of things happened in Poland, in Czech Republic, in Slovakia and other countries, when the Western companies went there, invested a lot, brought a lot of dividend back in the European Union, and helped these countries to go up in a very, very impressive speed. So this is what I'm saying. There is a lot to change. Europe is not me saying, everyone says it. Mario Draghi made a damning report that Europe has to change or to die. So it's about competitiveness, it's about getting out there with a new strength, and it's about not trying to respond to ourselves, to be just self-referential, to think that we have a divine decree for keeping the moral high ground and all the other are morally suspect. Because for example, we in the Western Balkans are morally suspect. But to be much more capable to adopt to the new challenges.
So if I can interpret you,
I saw a lot of victims today, yesterday, the day before yesterday, a lot of people feeling like something went terribly wrong, but it's not true. It's not true. It's a great opportunity to wake up and to run and to take back what has been lost in so many years of so much regulation, of so much talks, and of so far less actions.
So you've merged both the EU internal reform, competitiveness, and sort of what you're arguing for is a quicker accession to the single market of the Western Balkans, really kind of releasing other.
Not only Western Balkans, everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone in the continent, all the EPC, the European political community, should become now the new platform, and the European Union should invest on a lot of thoughts, a lot of its energies on the EPC, and Europe as such should become a very, very different continent based on, first and foremost, giving to everyone new opportunities to grow economically and to be in a better place. Otherwise, it will be impossible.
Thank you. Of the EU, of the US have very often been put in kind of complementary way to the enlargement process and generally promotion of EU norms and values. We see a big reversal now with the Trump administration. USAID projects abolished many of around 1.6 billion funds that had been provided, many of them supporting projects that actually work towards achievement of the EU goals. But also heavy lifting, hard power, sanctions, etc., to deter destabilization of Bosnia by Milorad Dodik, or go after money laundering, corruption, etc. If that is withdrawn, which is a possibility, do you think that's going to present a problem for the enlargement? Is it going to present a problem for your countries in meeting the criteria? And perhaps for you, Commissioner, how will the EU step in? What
I see is that since you have started to deal with Balkan people, your questions have become very long. And I don't know now what part of your question I have to answer, because there were a lot of questions in your question. But I'll try. First of all, I think there is a paradox that looks like nobody thinks about. Because there is this rush. We have to invest on defense, we have to upscale defense, we have to do defense, and we have to match defense. Okay, good. But what's the answer about, in the meantime, that other powers invest in defense? They have quite reasonable rates of economic growth. Europe is not. So where Europe will find the money to do all this upscale in defense? And I have never heard anything more shocking, anything more traumatizing, anything more crazy, that we have to leave aside education, healthcare, and the rest, because now our priority is to survive. So if the answer to have more investment, to have more strength militarily, is to become a continent of ignorance, I think we are not worth anymore to anything, and better someone come invade us. Well, Albania is investing quite a lot. Albania has been always ready to be invaded by Americans or Europeans, but the problem is that nobody wants to invade us. So
you're still doubling your defense spending.
Nobody wants to invade us. And if they invade us, we send them to Montenegro to have some fun and sun. So the second point I have to make is connected to the first. So Europe has to think twofold. Yes, stronger militarily, but stronger economically. And stronger in the whole challenges that are about the future. So, America invents artificial intelligence. China copied Europe without even having it regulated. So, how we will compete, for God's sake? And then we are in this process. It's clear that Europe has opened a discussion, and thanks God, President von der Leyen is taking it very, very personally to start a deregulation. Good luck to her with that. But in the meantime, they say to us, regulate, regulate, regulate. So how this will go on? So it's like an inertia, because there are, from my experience, I have known two European Unions. One, the one that everyone knows, the European Union of leaders, of big discussions, sometimes of big debates, sometimes of big neurotic processes, and another European Union that works like a Swiss clock, 24/7, 30 or 40,000 people producing every day, I don't know how many regulations. So no war, no crisis, no climate change, no nuclear threat can change the way this clock works. It's perfect. Every day, a new regulation comes out.
What are you referring to exactly?
What I'm referring to, ask the business community in Germany, and they'll tell you.
You're referring to the business of the EU.
To open a bank account in Europe today, a bank account, for God's sake, has become more complicated than to buy a house.
I meant to
and there are so many other things like that. And the last thing I would say is, it's not, this enlargement has always been treated like a kind of generosity, like a kind of generous vision of the richest in this continent towards the poorest. I'm telling you, today the European Union needs us more than we need them. Trust me on that. And when I say us, not just the Western Balkans, but all the countries that are not yet part of that union. Why?
Because you will deal regulate them.
Why? More than not, don't take it arrogantly, because we are used to survive. We are survivors. So whatever happens, we'll be around. That's why, that's why the Greeks and us fight always who is the oldest in this continent. Because we have seen many coming and going. The problem is, if European Union wants to get out of all this crisis, has to unite with Europe. And as Dr. Kissinger said, America without Europe is just an island. Europe without America is just a peninsula. So that island and this peninsula have to be together. But for the sheriff in that island to take seriously European Union has to become stronger, and numbers to the sheriff matter. So we should show up at the sheriff door like a market of 700 million. Otherwise, we are doomed to end like the priests in Constantinople, that while the walls of the city were falling, they had a very important discussion about the sex of angels.
Thank you, Prime Minister Rama. The message is clear. We will have some from the audience. We also have an addressed question of Serbia and the protests, but maybe that will come. I see High Representative Christian Schmidt raising his hand. Please do better than I did with the length of the question. You've heard the criticism, so please keep it short.
Thank you. Prime Minister Rama, she is a well-experienced Bosnian, and so I think she knows as well how one can limit the length of the questions, but the questions themselves, I think they remain very important. Thank you for your information, discussion, position about European Union enlargement. I think it's definitely the way for European integration to be the Western Balkans have included. Let me talk about Western Balkans.
Don't talk about Western Balkans. Ask a question, please, because we only have 7 minutes.
The question is...
He is Bosnian, he is a German that is Bosnianized.
Thank you. Thank you for defense.
Exactly.
We have 3 countries already in NATO. We have, of the 6, 3, some applying, some in between. How do you see the possibility of giving security structures in these countries? And the second, if you allow me, referring to Jean-Claude Juncker, who has proposed to have an idea of a partial membership. The Austrians have raised the proposal of having a graduate approach in combining what you said, the political need to be clear but true strategically, and the merit-based challenges where I and we can talk about situations in Bosnia and other countries. So how do we solve this urgency against the clearness and correctness of integration? Thank you.
Do we have another question before we go back to the panel? There's one over there in the back. So if I could summarize, if I understood you correctly, you're asking who is your question directed to about security structures being...
Ardian Hachkai, Tirana Connectivity Forum. To both Prime Ministers. I like this idea of turning the tables. And my question is, how can Western Balkans help and contribute to the European Union?
How can Western Balkans?
Contribute to European Union, competitiveness, security, anything.
Yeah.
Turning the tables.
So what are you bringing to the EU? I think that's all we've been talking about this entire time, isn't it? You're going to cut the red tape and to deregulate and bring the
less boredom to start with, and I would summarize because time is flying away by saying, to combine both questions, that the election of Donald Trump is the most generous act of God, if we follow the God narrative, towards the European Union, to give to Europe a very big chance to wake up. And Europe has to first not be so self-referential. I fully agree with Marta that the values, the principles, and what keeps the member states together should stay, but should not be in the meantime conditionalities for having friends in this world. So I had a debate yesterday with a German friend in a panel when he said the foreign minister of Germany and foreign minister of France went to Syria and they said to the Syrian guy, if you do this, this and that, we can be friends. No, we should learn to be friends with others, although they might have different values, they might have different ways of thinking how life should go. And the last thing I have is that Europe should think about both strength and competitiveness. If we will not be able to compete economically, we'll not be able to do anything else. This is and Western Balkans are a land of opportunity for this European Union to see a horizon for investments and for the old technology companies to not leave Europe because they cannot invest because it's over-regulated, but to come to the Western Balkans, to go to other parts of the continent and bring the dividend home instead of leaving the money outside the continent.